Hi everyone, my name is Ananya Bhattacharjee and I'm going to present our paper Design Implications for One-Way Text Messaging Services that Support Psychological Wellbeing. Text messaging services can support psychological well-being and help people manage stress and anxiety in general. One-way text messaging in particular can support independent reflection without a conversational partner. These are particularly scalable since they can be completely automated and do not need to rely on complex algorithms or chatbots. In our work, we are interested in designing text messages that can promote psychological well-being by prompting people to engage in self-reflection. Now, self-reflection is the process of creating new ideas and actions by attaining knowledge from past experiences. It is often the impetus that drives a person to convert their intentions to actions, and self-reflection can increase awareness about one's mental state, enabling them to identify flaws in their thinking and eventually change their behaviors or thought processes. These sort of services can have multiple real-world use cases. Individuals who are dealing with a form of rejection or failure can be sent prompts to reflect on positive elements in their life. People who are continuously working or studying can be reminded to take a break or to partake in an enjoyable activity. Additionally, cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT-based one-way messages can promote positive thoughts and increase problem-solving capacity. Our work was motivated by two research questions. First, what factors influence people's experiences with one-way text messaging services aimed to support psychological well-being, or in this case, promote reflection? And second, what challenges and design tensions might arise when such services are deployed in the real world? In our study, we started with design of 7 CBT-based messages. Then we did a formative study through surveys with 788 students and interviews with 9 of them to gather feedback about message content and timing. We redesigned message contents based on their feedback and deployed a messaging probe over 2 weeks to 11 individuals. Finally, we did follow-up interviews with 8 participants. This is our initial set of CBT-based messages that the research team consisting of faculty members and graduate students of SCI and psychology built iteratively. We can see that these messages have three key principles, namely gratitude, social connectedness, and positive activities. For our formative study, participants were recruited from a large programming course in University of Toronto. Participant pool came from multiple racial groups. They responded to a survey questionnaire where they provided their qualitative feedback on content of 7 messages, factors that might impact their engagement, and ideal time window for a system to interrupt them. The interview questionnaire was also similar. We received a range of findings regarding intervention contents. Firstly, we saw divergent responses to prompts involving social relationships. Gratitude promoting messages, although were generally appreciated, they were sometimes inducing unintended negative emotions like sadness, guilt, and helplessness, particularly in cases where people felt unsupported or lacked close relationships. There were conflicting views regarding concrete suggestions. Many participants sought it, but when messages actually tried to do so, were sometimes critiqued for being demanding. There were sometimes unintentional comparisons between individuals, particularly in case of messages that prompted people to look up to others. Based on this feedback, the new messages contained more explanation and or examples. For example, our previous message was something like, think of someone who has been supportive to you and feel grateful for them. But the new message contained additional text, like who were the people that helped you navigate it, what helped you feel more comfortable. The redesigned message pairs the prompt for gratitude and social connectedness with positive activities to accommodate people who feel that they lacked social support. In this way, we created an entire new set of messages that incorporated the feedback of participants. Going back to the formative study, we also collected a range of feedback regarding intervention implementation, particularly relevant to scheduling as a function of time. There were diverse opinions regarding the ideal time for getting a message. Some people said that the morning messages might help them plan the day ahead or do reflection, but people are rushing to work or school in the morning. Again, messages in the evening or at night were seen as a way for some individuals to use their downtime for self reflection without feeling any time pressure, but some people might be too tired at the end of the day. People also said that day of the week matters too. Weekend might be more suitable for actionable messages, and during the work week, messaging systems can send people reminders to help people take breaks. Since there was no unanimous decision on when messages should be sent, in the deployment study, we requested participants to anticipate their availability for engaging with the messages during the 2 week study period. And we did this by dividing the 24-hour day into 8 3-hour time slots. Messages were sent only at those times. However, timing was randomized within the available time frames. Additionally, we were curious to examine the impact of repeated engagement with the same message. And that is why participants got the same message multiple times in few cases. In the deployment study, participants received messages only on their preferred days and during their preferred time frame. They were asked to provide feedback on both message timing and the content separately in a 1 to 5 scale. Participant pool again came from the same university and came from multiple racial groups. The messaging probe was built using Tulio. In the deployment study, we found that people were generally happy with the content because of the additional explanations and examples. However, there were some complaints regarding actionable messages as it was difficult to execute them in the pandemic. Messages in weekends got statistically higher ratings than messages in the weekdays. However, we also saw that some participants partially failed to anticipate their schedules, but they were still happy that the messages were coming as expected. Participants' choice of preferred times were dictated by when they would be willing to take a break and actually follow through with the messages. Regarding the repeated messages, most participants felt that they were less engaged with the messages they had already seen. Repeated messages in some cases might have caused frustration to some participants. However, they suggested that significant gap like 1 week between successive days with the same message can reduce the frustration and remind people of the potential benefits of the recommended action. Our work enabled us to answer both of the research questions we initially set. We saw that daily schedules can influence people's experiences with one-way text messaging services. However, our findings not only advocate for knowing people's schedule and activities through mobile phone sensors and digital calendars, but also suggest knowing about their motivation and how they define their preferable times. Regarding the potential challenges and disintentions, we saw that the same message could lead to multiple interpretations. Differences may be partly attributed to each individual's unique environment and social life. Additional explanations in this context can help people appreciate the suggestions made by the messages, and examples can show their applicability. However, there is potential need for personalization. For example, a person with a limited peer support network could be prompted to reflect on who could be considered a peer in their life before being prompted to reach out to someone. In conclusion, one-way text messaging services have the potential to support psychological well-being at scale without conversational partners. In this work, we explored people's perspectives on such services to better understand the challenges and design opportunities in this space. Our findings highlight potential design opportunities regarding message content and timing, and we hope this work serves as a useful first step that future work can build upon in deploying text messaging systems. That is all of our work. Thanks a lot for your attention.